So if I was to ask you for a tip or a trick just to serve the audience along that way, aside from hiring you to help with all of this, is there something that you can give them as a nugget to walk away from this with?
Sure. There are probably a bunch, but where I usually start, especially for solopreneurs, is identity. And getting really clear on who you are as a solopreneur. Now, here's the thing. When we're a solopreneur and we're starting our own business, that identity, the business identity and the person identity are so intertwined, right? Like you're starting your business, so your business is you. It is your baby. But when you're to that point where you're like, I need to grow this beyond me, like this can't just be me doing all the things all the time, you have to start getting clear on being able to explain that identity. And being able to convey it to other people and hire people that fit that same identity, that align with that identity. So getting clear on things like, what's your why? Why do you do what you do? What's your brand personality? What's your company values? Who do you best serve and why? Having all of that in a packaged form or in a clear form where you can say, this is who I help, this is what I do for them, and this is why I do it. You're going to attract people to come work with you who have that same value system. And those are the people that you're going to love working with. You're also going to attract clients who align with that same value system and that brand identity. Those are the clients you're going to love. Those are not going to be the clients who suck your energy and your time and your money. Those are going to be the clients who love you, who you love, and who are going to pay you what you're worth, which is always important. So getting clear on that identity is the number one thing. And it often feels kind of a given. Sometimes, like, I think I talk to a lot of people who I talk this through with. I'm like, well, yeah, I know who I am. Oh, great. Okay, so tell me a little bit about who you are. Well, blah, blah. And then they start stumbling over themselves because they feel like they know it, but they can't explain it in a way that makes sense and compels other people. So having that identity is the foundation. It is your culture. You are building, as a solopreneur, you're building a culture. And if you don't have, which is weird to think, but because we think corporate culture, right? We think the Apples and the Googles of the world have great culture. Well, even as a solopreneur, even if you start just bringing in contractors, you have a culture that you are building, and that comes from that identity. So having that identity is hands down the first and most important thing that any solopreneur, any business owner really needs to get clear on, from my perspective, in my humble opinion.
I agree. And I'm actually, before we turned on record, I had said to you that I've evolved in my brand identity. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot. And my poor team, right? Like, I've paid for the same activities 3 or 4 times because that's how many times I've changed my mind.
Yeah.
But it's what the clients are kind of telling me, or what the universe is kind of telling me. So do you have clients that go through that change or?
Yeah, shoot, I've gone through that as a business owner. I mean, and I do think, and that's why, like I say, that I kind of help the people kind of in that place, that step ready to make the leap. It's that first section of starting a business that is that evolution. And I think that's the perfect word. It's an evolutionary stage. It's a growing stage. It's trying something, learning from it and adjusting. Trying something, learning from it and adjusting. So we're constantly in an evolutionary mode, and you're always going to be learning something and saying, that is a really good thing, and I need to add that to what I do. Now, that's different from getting sidetracked by bright shinies and the opportunities that present itself. You're like, oh yes, this is it. And that's again why having that identity is so powerful, because if you have your core values dialed in and you know your company personality, those things aren't going to change no matter what you are selling. Those things are not going to change. So I mentioned I started off my business as a virtual assistant, and I did that for 2 years. No, I actually had a trademark issue against the name that I had chosen. So I was also being forced to change my name. But it happened at a perfect time because I spent those 2 years learning a ton, figuring out who I was, how I was going to operate in this business, how I was going to handle all of those hats. And I learned so much in that it came time when it was time to change my name. I also did a lot of introspection and said, that's not who I am. That's not the business I want to build. I need to do other things. And what I had been seeing is solopreneurs and business owners who were out and about networking and presenting them. They were awesome. Like, you would talk to them and they were amazing. And then they'd hand you this homemade business card or a brochure that they printed out in their basement.
Right.
And as a graphic designer, as a trained graphic designer, I thought I was mortified because they were undermining how awesome they were. And so that's what I learned in those 2 years. One of the things I learned in those 2 years. And that's where I said, okay, I need to bring my graphic design skills back up. They were always there. Like, I've always done freelance, but they were never at the forefront. I said, that's what I need to help people with. You need to give them that visual voice. Well, so I did all graphic design. Well, coming out of that, people would come to me and say, okay, Tiffany, I need a logo. And I'd say, great, what do you want to communicate with that logo? And they'd look at me and go, oh, what do you mean? So we had to backtrack and figure out that identity. Who are you? Who are you trying to serve? How are we going to communicate that visually? And so that has been the evolution. So now I'm to the point where I'm doing more of that consulting because I love pulling that out of solopreneurs. I love helping them. They've got so much going on in their heads, helping them pull out those magic strands this is what makes you so special. This is what's important to your client. How are we going to put that into a business identity? And we still do the graphic design. We still have a creative agency side of my business, but the coaching is where I just get so much out of it because it's helping people have that big aha and understand how to clarify that brand identity. It's hard work, but it is that evolution. So just like my evolutionary track, I understand that evolution and that constant working on what you're doing until you finally find that groove. And you'll never get to that groove without all these experiences. So I cannot say, yes, I would have loved to get to where I am today faster, but those 10 years of growth and evolution, I needed to get to where I am. I could not have taken another path. It's made me who I am today.
I agree with that mentality 1,000,000%. You triggered a question though, because it sounds like you went through a lot, right, to get there. Mm-hmm. And I guess my question is this, and hopefully I'm going to present this right way. Change, self-awareness, the investment in your time, energy, figuring yourself out. I think that it takes a certain kind of mindset, right? To not just quit and throw in the towel, because I think that would be much easier and much more comfortable, right?
Right.
So what are your feelings on mindset and what does that look like for you?
Oh my gosh, mindset is huge. Because you're right. There have been many, 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 many days where I said it would be a heck of a lot easier to just quit and go get a job, because it just seemed safer. It seemed less conflicting. There wasn't as much conflict. There wasn't as much agony in myself. I mean, even the other part of the evolution that I didn't get into is even myself having to rebrand. Just in the last 2 years, I've rebranded myself, and that was painful. And I'm a branding coach. I had to hire somebody to help me because I couldn't pull it out of my own brain. Somebody else has to see it. Somebody else had to see it. They had to hold up that mirror for us so that we can see it. So mindset, resilience is a huge, huge thing. That ability to get knocked down and maybe wallow for a little bit and say, man, I should just go quit and give up. But being able to say, no, I don't want to. I want to make this work. I want to make it succeed. Brush yourself off and getting back at it. And constantly, it's a curiosity. How can I make this better? How can I do this differently? How can I make this work for me and my family, and again, back to the identity, it's having that why to keep you driving forward. Because if you don't have that understanding of your big why, your deep why, not just because I want to make money, but a deep why, that's going to drive you forward and keep you going even on those dark days, which we all have.